The roar of engines echoed through the quiet suburban street until a tiny voice broke through the noise. A little girl, barefoot and trembling, ran toward a group of bikers, tears streaking down her dusty face. "They're beating my mama," she cried, her words slicing through the air like lightning. The bikers froze. In that moment, no one moved, because what she said next changed everything. What could make a child so desperate that she'd run to a gang for help? And what those men did next, no one in that town ever forgot. It was a quiet Sunday morning in a small southern town, where life moved slow and every face was familiar. The streets smelled of fresh rain and gasoline from the nearby highway. Among the hum of engines and the chatter of neighbors, a young mother named Angela tried to hold her world together. She worked double shifts at the diner, saving every penny to give her little girl Maya the kind of life she never had. Angela was strong, but in this town, strength didn't always protect you. She lived on the wrong side of the tracks, where the stares were longer, the whispers sharper, and kindness came with conditions. Still, every morning she'd kiss Maya on the forehead, pack her school lunch, and promise that everything would be okay. That morning felt no different, until the shouting started next door. Maya heard it first, the kind of yelling that made the air heavy and the heart race. Angela brushed it off at first, thinking it was just another argument between neighbors. But within minutes, everything spiraled. The sounds grew violent, closer, more terrifying. And when Maya ran out into the street, barefoot and crying for help, fate led her straight into the path of a group of leather-jacketed bikers no one ever dared to approach. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances as Maya's trembling voice cracked through the heavy silence. Her tiny hands clutched one biker's jacket, her eyes wild with panic. "Please! They're hurting my mama." The men, rough and scarred from years on the road, had seen a lot, but not this kind of fear in a child. Without hesitation, their leader, a tall man named Hawk, swung his leg over his bike and followed her down the narrow dirt road. The others revved their engines and trailed behind, the growl of their bikes echoing like thunder across the neighborhood. When they reached the small, weathered house, the front door was wide open. Inside, chaos. Angela was on the floor, her arm bruised, her hair tangled, surrounded by two men yelling slurs that cut deeper than any punch. They weren't strangers, they were locals. Men who thought power came with skin color. One spat the words that froze the bikers in their tracks. "You people never learn your place." For a split second, Hawk stood still, his fists tightening, his mind burning. He'd seen injustice before, but this was different. This was raw, ugly hate happening in daylight with a child watching. When the men turned toward him, sneering, everything erupted. The room filled with chaos. Furniture toppled, shouts roared, and the sound of struggle filled the air. The bikers didn't come to fight. They came to stop one. But in a town where justice was selective, their interference would come at a price. Within minutes, neighbors peered through blinds, whispering, recording, twisting the story before it even ended. By the time the police sirens wailed in the distance, Angela was clutching Maya in her arms, shaking. The bikers stood nearby, breathing hard, blood on their knuckles, but they weren't the aggressors. Yet when the patrol cars arrived, the officers didn't see a mother defending herself. They saw a black woman surrounded by white bikers and jumped to the worst conclusion. Guns were drawn. Voices shouted, "Hands where we can see them!" The same men who had attacked Angela slipped out the back door, unnoticed, blending into the crowd that had suddenly gathered outside. Hawk raised his hands, confusion flashing in his eyes as the barrel of a gun aimed straight at his chest. The crowd murmured, phones recording, judgment forming faster than truth could speak. Angela tried to explain, but no one was listening. Maya's cries broke through the chaos again, desperate, pleading for someone, anyone, to see what was really happening. And then, just as it seemed the wrong people would take the fall, one voice broke through the noise. A neighbor, trembling but brave, stepped forward. "They're not the bad ones," she said. "They saved her." But in a town divided by color and silence, truth didn't spread as fast as rumors did. And as the sun set over flashing red and blue lights, everyone watching knew one thing. What happened next would decide whether justice finally spoke or stayed silent once again. The flashing lights painted everything in red and blue, but to Angela, it all looked the same. Danger. Her hand shook as she held Maya close, whispering that everything would be okay, even though she didn't believe it. The bikers stood frozen, surrounded by officers who barked orders, their guns gleaming under the harsh streetlights. The irony was cruel. Men who had stepped in to stop violence now branded as the villains. Hawk tried to speak. "Officer, listen! Quiet!" one shouted. Another shoved him against the patrol car, face pressed against cold metal. Angela screamed, "They saved us!" But her voice drowned beneath the sirens and the heavy, suffocating silence of disbelief. Maya tugged at her mother's sleeve, crying harder. "Mama, why are they hurting them?" "They helped you." Those words, innocent, piercing, undeniable, hung in the air. Even the officers hesitated for a heartbeat. But then came the radio crackle. "We've got an assault report at that location. Suspects are the bikers." And just like that, the truth lost again. Hawk's wrists were bound, his eyes blazing not with anger but heartbreak. Around them, phones recorded every second, angles that would soon flood the internet, cut, twisted, weaponized. None of them showed what came before. As Hawk was pushed into the back of the cruiser, he looked at Maya one last time. Their eyes met, hers wide with confusion, his filled with sorrow. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," and he just nodded, as if to say, "You have nothing to be sorry for." The doors slammed shut. The sound echoed through the street, final and cold, and then, out of nowhere, a second police unit arrived. An officer stepped out, one who had seen the call differently. He knew Angela. He knew her story. And as he approached the scene, something in his expression changed when he saw the bruises, the fear, the truth written on that little girl's face. But was it already too late to undo what had been done? The next morning, the sun rose over the same small town, but nothing felt the same. News trucks lined the street, faces behind cameras searching for a headline, not the truth. The videos had already gone viral overnight. Most people didn't see what really happened. They saw what they wanted to see. A black woman, bikers, flashing lights. Another story twisted by prejudice before the facts even surfaced. But then, a quiet shift began. The officer who arrived last, who had looked into Maya's eyes and seen the truth, filed his own report. He refused to let lies win. Security footage emerged from a neighbor's porch camera, showing exactly what had happened. The world watched as the story changed. The bikers were cleared. The attackers were arrested. And Angela finally slept without fear for the first time in months. Still, the scars didn't fade. Not the bruises. Not the memory. Not the moment she realized how quickly justice could turn its back, if not for one brave witness and a child's innocent plea. For the bikers, it wasn't just about that night. It became a mission. They started writing for something greater, protecting families who couldn't fight alone. Angela joined them at rallies, her story now a symbol of courage in a world that too often chooses silence over truth. But even as the headlines faded, one question lingered. Why does it take proof, pain, and public outrage before we believe a victim who's not the right color? How many more voices must cry for help before the world finally listens? Not with judgment, but with justice. Because sometimes change doesn't begin in courtrooms or politics. It begins with a little girl's cry for her mother and a few strangers who chose to listen.